Hold on. Hold on. Does anybody see anything?
I do
Mine's
not
still,
see.
I'm in it as myself, and it still says waiting for movie Schmovie podcast.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm in this
Maybe it's
movie. I'm
you
in
see
every.
anything? All right, it may take a second. Maybe a little
Yeah,
bit
it
of a
just
delay.
says waiting.
There we go. Hey,
You can see it? Okay. Hey everybody. There's a little bit of a delay, so you aren't going to be able to see it live on ours. But hey, hello, how you doing? Movie Schmovie. We're live.
we're live. There's like a 20-second delay though, so we probably want to mute our YouTubes.
Yeah.
That's wild. I don't even see it still.
Yeah, it takes a while. It's like a legit 20 seconds.
Ah, okay, there it goes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. So
So what was so just for anybody looking to do this themselves, what was the fix here? We had to start it in the
you
YouTube
have to
channel
go
itself.
you have to go in the YouTube channel and press go live because it showed our stream. Our stream was up showing it,
Right.
but we just have to hit go live within it. So for
Okay.
next time, we just go in the live section, hit go live, and then it starts.
So you can't do it all through Zoom. You got to do it through YouTube.
Apparently no. Apparently no.
No,
Apparently
no,
no.
it was done. It was. If I love if people are hearing this, if people are on this, they're getting a little
You
technical.
take notes from this. This
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
our mistakes are your
but it
opportunities.
wasn't really a mistake. It was something I thought we might have to do. I just didn't know it wasn't possible to do it entirely through Zoom. But it was basically on the YouTube page that you set up as a placeholder. There was an option to go live, so I knew that
Yeah.
was a possibility. So
Yeah. So here's what it is, Steve. If we set up a placeholder, you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
In Zoom, we could have just started it. It
right,
could have, but it would have given it a random link that people would have had to.
Not been able to join
Yeah.
like
So that's
or like go to and like turn on notify me or whatever.
well, the thing is, we
yes.
would have been able to immediately share that link and say, "Here's where we are," but it wouldn't be one that we could have had a placeholder page for. So it's like we would just have to start the meeting early, and then people would maybe get in early enough to hear this kind of scintillating
Yeah.
This is
conversation.
the good stuff. This is the
Hell
bonus.
yeah.
If there was a Patreon or some sort of bonus stuff, you'd be
Yeah,
paying for this.
yeah.
So this is all free content.
I've been told that the part where we're not talking about movies is the best part of the show, and I always take
Mhm.
that as a compliment and an insult.
I mean, you know what? Take it as you will. It's people are talking. That's all that matters.
Yeah. PS said, "Oh snap! Is this live?"
We are live. Never
Yeah.
done this, so hopefully, if anyone's listening out there, they can give us notes on like if the audio mix is good or something. I don't know. I think this is going to be the same thing they've been getting through. This is basically like the Zoom videos they've been watching on YouTube if they've been doing that. It's except this is happening right now. So if
Yeah.
some world event were to occur, you would see us react to it 20 seconds later than you did.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
interesting part is that there's that much of a delay.
Yeah. Yeah. He said he'll try to ask questions 21 seconds ahead of us.
Okay, good.
That'd
We'll
be
try to be
best.
like,
Yeah.
one thing I've always appreciated about you talking about Pierre
Yeah.
specifically.
Pierre said that. Yeah.
One thing I've always said about him and always liked about Pierre is that he's exactly 21 seconds ahead of his time.
Usually,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, he's on 21 Jump Street. 21 Jump Street.
If you're going to be on a jump street,
He says the audio is fine.
21 is it.
Cool. Cool.
Good. So he heard that
Yeah.
bullshit loud and clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice and crisp bullshit.
Cool. Cool.
All
Cool.
right. Well, we're recording. I'm going to make sure I'm recording in all the places I like to record. One of them is Logic.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah,
I think he heard my song because he started laughing.
had to be something you did.
This is good. Okay, we ready to go? I think
Hell
so.
yeah.
Like kick it off officially. What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie, the first ever live streamed episode of the podcast. This is episode number 435. This is our very special top 10 of the year that was 2024. We are
I just put up peace.
Oh, I
Nothing
thought you were
crazy.
like I thought the number
No.
2 was relevant and I'd missed
No.
something.
No.
But yeah, so we're gonna do this a little earlier than we normally do. We usually kind of wait until February, March-ish to do our top tens, but we thought we might do it a little earlier this year, right out of the gate of 2025. And we'll get in that in a moment. My name's Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show. It's good to hopefully maybe see somebody. I met Pierre for the first time a few weeks ago, which was a joy. and a pleasure. But maybe if some other people hop in here, that'd be great during this live stream, and hopefully maybe we can do this in the future too. But as always, I'm joined by
Run.
Touche.
Touche. Touche.
Oh, touche. I mean, sorry, but it's John.
It's weird. I'm watching this on the YouTube, and I'm trying to watch this, and I'm just like,
Oh,
Don't do that.
I can't. I can't do it. I'm just making sure it looks okay.
Yeah.
Like that
it's,
everything's clean.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild though. But yeah, this is gonna be fun. I got to be honest. We talk about this too much probably, but the stress that goes into a top 10 or a top list or even some of the list episodes that we do, I have such anxiety over this. And like when Ronald brought this up, like, hey, maybe we should do it earlier and not go so far into the year. My butthole got a little tight real quick because I was just like, I don't know about this, guys. Like, we
I
always
edited
kinda...
out that sound in the podcast.
Oh, you can edit it out.
Yeah,
Good.
I have a filter set.
Yeah.
You got
So
that.
sphincter
I figured
noises.
you'd be on top of that.
Yeah.
It was like what?
But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, we don't get access to a lot of stuff early enough, especially a lot of awards films. And we kind of catch up with that in the first month or so of the new year. So, there will be a lot of movies that I think some of us haven't seen. And, that may affect our feelings later on in the year. But it is interesting, our timing of this, because this weekend is the Golden Globes. So at least we're kind of in some sort of sync with awards conversations, because they'll be airing this Sunday, a couple days after this episode drops on some of the audio channels that we publish to. But I don't know. I just kind of, this is an exciting episode as always, because it's kind of fun to look back at everything that we've watched, some of these movies, maybe even together, and, try to make a list of what kind of affected us the most or what kind of stuck with us or made us feel something. But it was a challenge for me, I gotta say, to like kind of come to terms with the fact of, I'm not going to have probably a real complete list or a for life list for 2024 still for a few months. But it was a good challenge, and I like things that kind of make me feel uncomfortable. So it was like, let's go ahead and do this. And
your therapist calls me, Steve, and says that's the only reason you do this show. Because you're still uncomfortable around me and Ronald.
That's it. Yeah.
Which is weird because you and Ronald started the show together.
Yeah, that's right.
I know, it's very strange.
That's how it works out, man.
No, I know what you mean. I took it as a different sort of assignment almost when I realized that's what we were doing. Like normally it is the goal to try to see every possible movie, and make your list. And this time it was more like, what's a snapshot of the year? And it helped me clarify that, like, oh, the movies that make this list for me, because there was, as usual, there's like a whole shadow top 10 called my 11 through 20. They're all great movies too.
Yeah.
And like those movies, any one of those, anything in the top 20 could have been in the top 10, and anything in the top 10 could have been in the number one spot, or at least the top 5 at some point, totally, in my calculations. Yeah. And what I was trying to do was like, what movies, if I walked away from 2024, what movies would I want to keep as a snapshot of the year, and like moments that I'm going to remember and that I'm going to take forward? Because if you just, it's almost impossible to think that, anything, movies, music, anything, to think that you've consumed everything enough to know what actually is even your favorite thing that came out that year. I probably won't discover some of this year's movies until well into, now it's last year's movies. I probably won't discover some of last year's movies until well into this year, now that we're in 2025. But yeah, I think, and we always talk about that, like what our philosophy is behind that year's list. And I think it's interesting that we get so nervous about it, because it is kind of a thing to be nervous about that we've created for ourselves.
Sure.
But I relaxed when I came up with that idea of just, okay, I can look at the movies in my list and I have a reason for why each one of them is sort of a scrapbook movie for me, or a movie that's like I might use as a touchstone later to remember this year. So what about you, Ronald? Was it
literally watched everything that I need to watch except for one movie.
Wow.
And I don't think that's going to break the top 10.
What didn't you watch?
Brutalist. That's the one I didn't see.
That's the big one I hadn't seen on.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it either.
I didn't feel like it would break the top 10, but everything I wanted to see, I saw. Like,
that's great.
I went out on my way to go see some shit. So
the ones I didn't see are, I didn't see Wicked. I didn't see A Complete Unknown. I didn't see The Brutalist.
Didn't see that.
There's a movie called Flow, an animated movie that just wasn't in our area.
Didn't see that either. Yeah.
And then what else? I did not see. Well, those are the big ones. But when I realized that they weren't going to be on my list, oh, Baby Girl was the other big one that's in theaters now that I didn't
Didn't
see.
see that.
But when I realized they weren't going to be on my list, I was like, wait a minute, how much more interesting would John Walker's list be if it had one of those movies on? Maybe Flow, but all the other ones feel like movies that are getting listed and hyped enough without my help. So I don't, you don't need me to help Wicked. Or to point out that people are taking the Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown, seriously at this point. So it's nice. My list was able to be a little bit more personalized in that way. But yeah, who knows if any of those big movies. But I have like 10 movies that I thought I would love to have seen that I did not get a chance to see.
Good.
Yeah, mine's probably about the same. Like I guess I mean, like looking at like some of the categories for the Globes this weekend, and some short lists for the Oscars. A lot of what you mentioned. I also didn't see a serious. Was it a serious man? No, not no.
Complete Unknown.
No. The Kieran Culkin.
Oh,
Mm.
A
What's
Serious
that?
Pain or
A serious pain. A serious pain. So
Is that
whatever
what
it's
it's called?
called.
A
Yeah,
real
that one.
pain. A
A
real
Real
pain.
Pain. Yeah.
A real pain.
You can
A
tell we're
different.
movie buffs.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. I didn't see A Different Man. I didn't
I saw that.
see The Apprentice.
Saw that.
I didn't see everything you listed. I didn't see Sing Sing, which these are all movies coming up, in categories here. But um, it is what it is. This is good. Yeah, I mentioned titles that I know will be on Ronald's list, so he can talk about them later.
Smaller movies. There's a movie called Resonator that I did not see.
Never heard of it.
Oh, no, I haven't heard of that. What's that about?
It's one of those movies where I couldn't tell from the brief I read on it how much it's a real documentary and how much it's a comedy
Oh.
or not comedy. It doesn't seem comedy, but I don't know. I think it's real, but it seems to be a documentary about a woman whose father invented an influential kind of obscure keyboard. I know
Oh.
influential and obscure might sound, but called the Resonator. And how like it's just all about her coming to terms with this is my understanding, the musicians that played and were influenced by this sort of obscure instrument that her
Oh.
father designed or invented. So it just sounded really cool, but I just was not able to fit it in.
Wow.
Sounds emotional.
So yeah, this is the show where we say tune into the live stream and we'll name all the movies we didn't watch, and you won't be hearing.
Well, no,
about
this is what you take away from this episode is like movies that we mentioned in our top tens. Obviously, we saw and we loved, but if we didn't get to watch them, maybe you've seen some of them, or maybe you haven't even heard of something like The Resonator. Never even heard of it. Thanks for mentioning that, John. But yeah, you could just get your list going, because if you haven't seen anything that we've already talked about and going forward on our list, this is an opportunity. Most of these things that we're probably going to mention are, or I think a lot of them, are probably on video on demand on a streaming service or currently in theaters. So, I mean, there's lots of opportunity to check out some stuff, here going forward. And I guess kind of laying out how we approach this, well, at least if we follow the same path as we did last year, we kind of go through our 10 to 6 pretty quickly, just kind of go down that list individually. We'll go from 10 to 6 pretty quickly. And then from 5 to 1, we kind of spend a little time talking. We'll kind of score the movies depending on where they're placed, how often they're mentioned, and kind of make a movie top 10 or a movie top 5, I think, at the end, for the top 5 titles that get the most points. The one question we didn't really go over, and this is the joy of how we do our podcast. If since we don't know each other's lists, when we start mentioning movies that may be on another's list, should someone speak up if it's higher and we talk about it at one time?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we'll just kind of hold it until it's at its highest point on our list.
Yeah,
Right.
I like that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great.
That
So-
also feels like a nice tease too, because a lot of times it's like, oh wait, how high is it? How
Can
high
I
is
be
it gonna
honest?
I
It's
love
a
it.
it's a thing that we do on our list that I've never seen done on other people's lists. And because of it, it makes it a lot easier to kind of have this collective opinion on it. Because when I watch some of the other podcasts do it, it's like people are talking about it 3, 4 times, sometimes
Yeah.
5 times. I'm like, this is exhausting. I don't want to
Sure.
hear about uh challengers 10 times.
I have invited 7 friends onto the show that are all going to talk about challengers. I've heard other shows do it, but what's weird is I heard them start doing it. I don't think like they listened to us or anything, but we started doing it, and then I noticed other people started doing it, and I was like, oh, I wonder if everybody had the same collective issue of this is like you're not really having a conversation, you're just kind of
Right.
talking at people. But when you hold it, it's like it allows it to not just be collective, but it also creates that little tiny bit of like, oh, okay, cool, not so fast, buddy. You can't talk about that one yet, and it kind of creates a anticipation for that. So, I think there might be a few things. I'm looking at my list. I wonder how surprising my list is to you guys at all. And I think if there's any surprises here, if there are any surprises here, it's because you don't know exactly what movies I've seen, and that's
Yeah.
why it's hard to gauge. But I think there's some real down the middle John picks that are on my list. Ronald, how would you characterize your list this year? Does it feel very, very, very Ronnie indeed? And
I think
I know
uh
those are the exact words you would use to describe it.
yeah, 10 through 6, very Ronnie-ish. 5 through 1, basic bitch. I'm a basic bitch when it comes to this.
Mm.
I mean, I get real basic. I get like, have you seen, girl, have you seen? One of the
People don't know about your spinoff podcast, Girl, Have You Seen?
girl, I get very girl, have you seen from
Yeah.
5 through 1.
Yeah.
Every
Real
time we don't
basic.
hear from you for a while in our text thread on messages, it's like you start the next one with that, and it's like, oh, what's he seen?
Well, he says
Yeah.
this is a real GHYS. Okay, yeah, that would
Yeah, yeah. And then it slams
take me
down
a
like
second.
the text
Yeah,
slams down in new iOS. Yeah, but
GHYS.
yeah, very basic bitch from 5 to 1. Like
I
so
felt
basic.
that way about my list at one or 2 points, and I think I shook it up a little bit with some late additions. You know me, you guys probably if you know one thing about me, I'm a real threat to see a movie at the last minute that becomes my favorite movie of the
You
year.
you are. This is true. So yeah, what did you see last, John? No, I'm just
I won't
kidding.
tell you what I saw last, but I
Hold it.
will say
Hold
it
it.
happened again. It happened
Yeah,
again.
I didn't doubt it. Okay,
It
perfect.
happened again.
All
Mm,
right, everybody good? You
I
feeling good? You
think we're
doing any
good.
yeah.
last minute moves on your list there, Ronald?
Maybe.
I see you looking down. I see you moving
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. I'm a little fucked up about this one.
Oh
Just
no.
just like 10. That 10 is really the one that's like mess with everything else. I think I'm pretty good
So
with.
you've had a 10 and 11 that have danced around, or is that
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
Well, maybe when we're done, we'll rattle off our 11 through 20 just to see what didn't make it onto those 10s.
Okay.
A done.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun dun dun.
Okay.
You all right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
All right, well, start us off. Go with your 10.
Number 10, Smile 2.
Oh.
Yeah, it had a real crazy impact on me. Like the first couple of minutes, I can't make this list and not put it on it. It was crazy, like the craziest piece of cinema. So much so that they just gave away the first couple of minutes for free online. Like they're like, you still won't guess what happens after this
Right.
opening scene. So yeah, Smile 2.
And 9. Just go right down 10 to 6.
Oh, we're all rattling them off.
Just go
Okay.
right to 6. Yep.
9, Love Lies Bleeding. 8, Rebel Ridge. 7, Honora. 6, Wild Robot.
Wow.
Then
I like it.
after
I
that,
like
girl,
it.
have you seen's coming
Girl,
up
have
here.
you seen?
Girl, have you seen?
All right, I'll go through my
Yeah.
10
Go
through
for it.
6. Sliding into the 10th spot, it was going to be an animated film about a robot, but which animated film about a robot would it be? And it turned out to be the slightly more obscure, beautiful animated film about a robot, Robot Dreams, directed by, I believe, by Pablo Berger.
Mm.
I hope I got that name right because I'm not checking. And then in the 9th spot, The Substance, coming in at number 8. Not the oddity, just oddity.
Oh, nice.
A very near perfect film in terms of what it was trying to do and how it did it.
Still haven't
Coming
seen
in,
it.
coming in at number 7, a movie that I would love to do a segment on, and maybe it'll be a future required viewing. Who knows? I really wanted it to be in my top 5 so that it could get talked about more, because this is the kind of movie that slides in there and it's a genre piece and it just feels so good. And I'm glad. I think Steve, you were the one who referred us to it or recommended it to us. But The Order, fantastic
Oh.
movie. And then coming in at number 6, Nosferatu.
Wow. That's pretty recent right there. Look at that. Pierre saw that with you.
Yes.
Welcome. There you go.
He's out there going, I know he actually
He's-
saw that movie.
Yeah.
He's like, the rest
I
of
can
these movies, he
validate
could
he
have
actually
just,
watched
could have
it.
just like, yeah, looked up on Reddit what people are saying.
Yeah.
All right. My 10, I got Hitman on Netflix. I got number 9. One of the earlier movies I saw on this list was Snack Shack, which is a great coming of age movie. Number 8, I got Rebel Ridge.
What?
Yeah. Number 7, I got The Wild Robot. And number 6, I have Long Legs.
Oh,
Wow. Okay. We have 2 that are very close in the
Yes,
ranking.
we do. Yes, we do.
Wow.
So this is already off to a good start.
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep it going, Ronald. Just go. Let's go to number. What do you got? Number 5.
and now relax. We can talk about these. A little
Now you
bit
can
more.
talk more, unless somebody has it higher, and then we'll just be like, wait
Right.
a second.
Yep. Hold that thought,
Hold
brother.
up.
Number 5, Conclave.
Go right ahead.
As you were.
Yes.
I keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Talk about Conclave if you like.
Oh,
or-
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
cool.
don't go 5 to 1. Just some
Okay, sorry.
brief comment. We
I got-
reviewed it last episode.
We're trying to get you. We're trying to get you out of the show as quick as you can tonight. You know.
Yeah. I got so scared. I'm like, I have the no. Conclave was just one of those movies that, it feels like, how they have those like Warner Brothers top 50 of 50 for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
It feels like Conclave is gonna go in that. Like it's like a masterpiece of a movie. It didn't go higher just because there's so many more movies that are better than it. That sounds weird. That sounds like
I like that explanation. It didn't go higher because it's not higher on my list.
yeah. But it just is one of those movies that is stuck in my head. Dynamic characters, a lot of tension without having any action. And then when the action happens, holy shit. Like it's like it just has a little bit of everything. And it's one of those movies, like if I told my mom to watch this movie, she would talk to me about this for an hour and a half. Like it's just one of those movies, like you think it's one thing and then it unpacks into another thing, and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the performances are just unforgettable. So yeah, Conclave is my number 5.
All right, cool. Yeah. We talked about that one just last episode, maybe, or just a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, almost. I mean, at one point it was very high on my list, but it just gradually getting kicked around. After a while, it slid down.
I think it's Gravity. I think Gravity has something to do with that.
The film Gravity?
No, just Gravity as a whole and defying it.
Oh,
What'd you do there, Ronald?
what did you do there? I think we
What'd you
saw.
do there?
My number 5, Sean Baker's Anora, where my touche came from, and I noticed Steve didn't have a glimmer of recognition, and I realized maybe he did not watch Honora. Is that?
Yeah.
I did actually.
Oh, you did. Okay,
You saw it?
I just missed it. I
Oh,
just
okay.
missed. I missed
Oh.
No, I just missed your
Missed when I said
touche?
touche.
Yeah.
Touche.
Probably my favorite character in that movie. Now, I thought, there were a few different people who were going through my mind when I was watching this movie. On one hand, I was picturing, like the Safdie brothers, or at least like the uncut gems, sort of good night or good time version of the Safdie brothers. And then there was also some moments it was not as controlled and like carefully blocked and shot, but the Coen brothers sort of low lives having very specific dialogue and really funny, unexpected sort of dialogue exchanges. I really appreciate how this movie in the middle is like a zany comedy with a weird group of characters that are together kind of on a road trip almost, I mean it has elements of so many movies that I like. There's a few things that kind of bumped me about the movie, and I think Sean Baker is a director who I will always sort of ponder his intentions and his methods and his targets and all of that, his subject matter, why he focuses on like people that it seems at times like he's kind of making fun of them or showing them to be ridiculous, and other times it seems like he's kind of showing that we're all the same. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to me, but I do think because of that aesthetic, he does end up depicting people who don't often get depicted on film. Characters like in this film, it's an exotic dancer or sex worker who is who is at the center of it. And I don't know how realistically that world is depicted. In some ways, it's kind of cartoonish, but it's funny. It's a funny world. Characters are funny. I think the character of Honora is an interesting case because of a few things she does and says in the movie, we're so clearly not meant to think she's great. Or she's the coolest, well put together person in the world. But we do see just how tough she is and how she turns the tables on almost any situation that she's in. And so
Yeah.
you're sitting there admiring her, but then kind of seeing her limitations as a person at the same time. Ultimately, this movie ends on a really heartbreaking note. After some really rough dialogue in a way that it's like definitely hits at that stuff I was just mentioning about how conflicted you'll be about this character. But yeah, people are talking about Mikey Madison's performance in this. And again, that Sean Baker thing of surrounding semi-pro or professional actors with less known faces or amateur actors, it just has this feel of you're in it. And he, I don't know, he always seems to chip away at some kind of humanity that these strange people show for each other. So yeah, this movie, it's almost like I was daring it to sweep me away, when I watched it. And yeah, I really enjoyed all the things I just mentioned about Honora. And I think it's also from a filmmaking standpoint, it's got a nice looseness to it. It's again, if you know Sean Baker's movies, they're not like technically overly precious. There's a kind of energy to them. And this is one that is very much in that vein.
Mm. What'd you think about it, Steve, before I start going on
Just
mine?
outside my top 10.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mine
like
was
it would be like I think it's like 12 or 13 or something.
okay.
It's around there.
It was 6 for me. It was pretty had a pretty crazy impact on me. I think about I'm all heart, I'm like I kind of go in heart
It's
first.
gross.
It's gross. Just like outside of my body. It's
Yeah.
just uh
You're
good just
glistening, pumping.
like
Yeah.
um but there's a song. Frank Ocean wrote it, and it's over the Eagles Hotel California called American Wedding. I suggest anybody with a heart listen to this song. It's about two teenagers that get married, and it's the most heartbreaking song I've ever heard in my life. And it reminds me of this movie. Like it feels like this American wedding, like this like idea of a thing that you do where you just it's puppy love and passion, and you're not thinking about who somebody is necessarily as a whole. It's who they are. It's who they are in that moment. And I can honestly say in my 20s I had like a shit ton of those like real intense 2 week things. Where you just like you're on an island for a little bit and deep in love and saying stupid shit like, so if we have a kid and they
Right.
wind up dancing or something, are we gonna go to the recitals at the same time, or am I gonna pop up like I'm a deadbeat dad and do something really dramatic in the back? It's like these stupid ass questions that you have in bed with somebody that they had in this movie that just real cool, realistic. That part was realistic to me.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't had too many escorts in my life, but I like to imagine that they're as cool as Nora. But yeah, just a really dope movie, man. Like fun, fast paced, and you're right. Felt like a Safdie, like a Uncut Gems. It feels like a stories from Uncut Gems sort of thing that I really enjoyed. Mickey, I guess I forget her last name. The lead of that plays Nora is just unreal, man. This
Is it Mikey
Forrest,
Yeah,
Madison or Mickey
yes,
yeah,
Madison?
Mikey Madison. Yeah,
Mikey Madison.
And I love the
Um,
guy who plays is his name Toros, the guy with the mole on his face?
yes,
He's so good.
he's so
He's
good.
an example of what I was just saying, where it's like he never really likes her or becomes like a warm figure towards her, but you can tell that at the end when he's kind of saying goodbye to like and there's a different version of this movie where you just assume these guys are going to brutalize her or
Yeah,
yeah,
sexually
yeah,
assault her or something. And I like how this movie never really made you think it was going there. I don't know. Somehow there's three guys or whatever, however many there were. Like, no, I guess there were two guys. Anyway, they're like coming in that the home invasion part.
yeah.
You're just
yeah.
expecting that scene to turn so much uglier than it does. The way that she takes charge of that and kind of has them going, okay, 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 okay.
Yeah,
It's just very funny. But that's like where you go, oh, that's why this movie is named after this character because she
Right.
is kind of the engine that makes the story something that
yeah,
we
for
haven't seen
sure.
before. Yeah, good stuff.
Good stuff, man.
Steve.
My number 5, John. You mentioned it. on your list as your number, I think 6, but is The Order.
That's my
Um,
number 7, but like it's
7,
great because
sorry.
now we get to talk about the order.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This is one I came to later in the year. I just kept hearing great things about it. You know, this whole Nicholas Holt run that he's on with this and Juror 2 and Nosferatu. Um, I love this kind of movie, this like kind of crime thriller, especially kind of being set in the 70s, based on true events. The grit to it. I mean, honestly, Jude Law, I just felt like, I mentioned the Nick Holt thing because I think him being on the radar right now is what kind of brought this movie to my eye. But the Jude Law, I mean, I've always loved Jude Law, but I don't think he's ever been better. I really don't think I've ever seen a better performance from him in anything he's
Mm,
ever done.
wow.
There is a scene. There's actually a couple scenes in this movie. There's a scene in a jail cell where he just completely like loses it, and I was just like pushed so far back in my seat, and I was like, wow, this is something special. But it's a really great, again, crime thriller based on true story about a kind of a string of robberies in the Pacific Northwest around this cult called the Order, this white supremacist group. And in Jude Law plays an FBI agent. Janae Smollett is another agent that's in the film, kind of tracking these guys down, and it's kind of got that. There's a vibe to it, a little bit of the Pacino, De Niro heat of it all, where they don't really share scenes together, but when they do, it's kind of like by accident, and then they have a couple moments where it's just kind of I felt to be pretty electric.
You talk about that hunting.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Incredible,
It's
incredible.
amazing. It's amazing stuff.
Not
Yeah.
just because of the way Nicholas Holt kind of has the drop on Jude Law in that
Yeah,
moment, but
yeah,
also that what he saw Jude Law do has this weird nobility or dignity to it
right.
that then Jude Law doesn't even talk about when
Yeah,
he's like he pretends you know what I'm saying? Like
totally.
there's such a power play that's happening, and Jude Law is showing his mettle without even knowing that he's doing that to this guy at this point.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I agree. I think that moment, and then I love later when Jude Law realized that he had talked to the guy, like when
Yes.
he realized
What
when
he
he
looked
puts two and
like.
two
You saw the
together
picture. Yeah.
and realized, oh, I had him. No, yeah, Nicholas Holt's having a year. I would even say you're saying we haven't seen Jude Law be this good in a while. I'm right now being blown away by him on Skeleton Crew.
True.
He's
Yeah.
so good
Yeah.
on that, but it's like he's hit maybe that point where we're just going to appreciate like the lines in his face are adding something to his performances. And yeah,
Mm,
he's playing as haggard as he has ever been, at least that I've ever seen
Yeah.
in the order. But that character, Steve, he's so grounded. Like when he comes to town, there's this history just pushing down on him
Yeah.
that we don't even really ever come to know in the movie. But it gives him such a sense of like, you get that in a lot of movies like this where it's propaganda or whatever, or you know, where it's like, why is this guy so obsessed? But I like the sort of lone quality of this of his character.
Yeah.
And you're right, these crime thrillers that creep up from time to time, they just, when they're this well made, it's so easy to settle into something like this. Like in a way, this is like a super down the middle movie, but it's really just a thing we love and we've seen before, but it's done extremely well. Um,
Yeah.
the cops and robbers story. So
Yeah. It's great. I mean, and it's yeah, that's still playing in some theaters, but it's on video on demand as well. But
yeah.
highly recommend that. That's my number 5. So Ronald, you're
Yeah.
up.
Pierre totally agrees. He said Jude Law was amazing, which is
Oh,
pretty
great.
cool.
Thanks,
oh
Pierre.
great.
All right. So what's my number?
Number 4.
Number 4. Substance. The substance? Is it the substance
The
or
Substance.
Substance.
The substance. Yes.
You're like, yes, that's the one.
That's the one. Uh a music video on steroids, cocaine, whatever you want to call it. I don't understand how food became so disgusting in this movie somehow. But yeah, it's like how brave is it of everybody involved to make this movie? But um I don't know, man. Like I this one feels kind of transformative. Like Demi Moore does something a little like heavier in this. Like it feels like she's taking an idea of herself and kind of throwing it up against the wall and showing every pocket of fat or beauty mark or I think there's something she's doing something incredible in this. And how there was like that time. like 6 months ago where they're like, Pam Anderson's so brave because she doesn't wear makeup. All right, look what Demi Moore's doing. I think you need to shut the fuck up and see what Demi Moore's doing because it's a different thing. Like she's taking the idea of herself and putting it up there, and really, this is really a commentary on what it feels like to age in the industry. Like that, it feels. I mean, it feels predatory. It feels mean. Some of the things that they're saying, I feel like I hear people say things about older, beautiful people, and it hurts me because like you're gonna be old at some point, and using qualifiers like she looks good for her age is a strange thing to say
Sure.
because what if you're ugly and you're young? You know what I mean? Like, what if you just say you're ugly for you look really ugly for your age? Like, some people are just beautiful. It's timeless. To put an age on it is strange. Um, and I think that this movie captures that obsession and trying to keep up with the current whatever's going on and become this version of yourself that's uh I don't know. I
It's
don't
like you're
even
holding on to a version of
yeah,
yourself
you
is
know.
that you know what I mean? It's yeah, no, totally. I remember feeling the
Yeah.
same thing. Like almost like this movie's not as directed at me as a man. Um, uh, but it's not just women who the industry and the culture makes feel that way. That like
Right.
you're washed.
Right.
You
Right.
got a gray hair, you're washed. You
Get
hit a
out of
wall.
here.
That's the thing I was seeing for a
Yeah,
long time. It's like,
wash.
oh, this one, she really hit a wall, and that'd be some picture of some beautiful woman, and it's like, what are you talking about? I
Yeah.
think the older you get, the more mature your tastes are, and the more you realize like what it really is to be an attractive person, maybe. But also, if
Yes.
you're doing it right, those things evolve with you as you
Right.
get
Yeah.
older. So you don't want to have an arrested sense of what's beautiful in terms of outward looking or inward looking.
Yeah.
And also, Dennis Quaid can chew the scenery. That's something that we
Oh
find
yeah.
out. And
And some shrimp.
yeah, well, that's what I call shrimp is the scenery.
Oh, that's what you call them. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, cool.
Oh, does that mean me?
It does.
All right.
Yes,
The
sir.
my number 4 is another movie that was put on. I don't remember when it was, but it was earlier in this year. It was somebody's pick for required viewing, and I can't remember if it was which one of you it was, but it was Exuma.
That's
Yes.
Ronald.
Okay.
That is my
I
number 4.
I didn't know. Okay, this is fucked up to me. Can I tell you why? I don't know if this was it is a 2024 movie in America. Damn it.
No, I went with I think we've done both on this show. I
Damn
think
it.
like every now and then one of us will see a movie when it's in that festival stage and we will
Yeah.
include it in our year-end list even though technically it's not American, hasn't had its American release date yet. And I know
Mhm.
we've also done the American release date. But I had a few things this year that I was like,
Yeah.
okay, they technically hit some festival or came out internationally last year. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Exuma was just a movie that I mean, I was so taken by it. It does
Yeah.
so many things that I like, um, and does them well. And like it's character piece and kind of almost character comedy in some moments, but a real sense of family with these lead characters. But it's like a possession, demon, ghost story, exorcist story, just unlike anything that I've seen. And I think it's because as a Korean film, um, it's a South Korean film. It has the added cultural weight of like what the spirituality of that culture is laid on top of the sort of mainstream horror sort of feeling stuff. And what I remembered really loving about this movie was when there was a haunting scene, it was always very unconventional and not like something I've seen before. And the movie really spends a lot of time dwelling on the atmosphere and the way that just how it feels different when something's about to happen or things are kind of strange or just the sensory. You always hear about like people just, oh, it's a strange smell or a strange, it was warm in this room or it was cold in this room or I
Yeah.
had a sense that somebody was behind me or whatever. This movie does a good job of dramatizing those kind of like moments when things are about to go really crazy. of how a person starts to feel afraid and can kind of sense those atmospheric effects. But really, what I remembered and what I loved about it was just the story is really solid. The actual when they see this form of the spirit in one scene, it's insane.
Yeah.
I love ghosts and folklore creatures like that that are just insane looking. And there's just some visuals that were very simple. There's a scene in the film with like fire in the sky at one point at night that's just a really cool, arresting visual. And it's just full of moments like that, that again are given added pleasure and weight because of the sort of likable team of Ghostbusters that we are following. So yeah, Exuma is one that I think about all the time, you know.
Oh, so good. That's so good.
I guess I should mention who directed it. It's Jung Jae-ho. Is that his name? No, Hyun. Young Jae-hoon. Hyun. We should do a pronunciation key for all these things.
We should. We really should. Because I always feel like I'm screwing up somebody's name.
I just want to be clear. It's because I'm an idiot, not because people's names are strange. It's just because that's a bit of homework that I sometimes forget to do is to get the phonetic spelling of
Yeah.
people's names.
I watched this movie with this guy named B-Rad Pitt.
Oh, B-Rad.
Oh yeah, be right. That's proper.
Goddamn
That's the right way
B-Rad
you do it.
Pitt.
I thought it was put.
It's Piz. All right, my number 4 was one of my more interesting movie going experience this year in that I had to leave the movie because the group that I went with would not sit through it because it was pretty hard to watch. But it is Alex Garland's Civil War.
Mm.
I was really excited, anxious to see this movie in theaters. Thankfully got to go back and check it out and finish it. I initially saw it with my wife and my wife and my friends on vacation in Destin, Florida. And unanimously, I think pretty much all of them looked at me within 15 minutes and was like, I don't know if I can watch this movie. But I'm glad I went back and watched it because I think it's pretty incredible. It's definitely a hard movie to watch. I think it's
Is it harder to watch now than it was at the time?
God.
Because I saw a couple of movies that I think when they were made, they were kind of like statement films that were trying to get us pushed in the right direction, and now they feel very depressing, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's January 2nd when we're recording this, and some crazy shit's already happened. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I just an amazing cast. Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Morrow, Kaylee Spaney. What's his name?
The guy from Dune.
No, well, yeah, but I'm talking about Nick Offerman, who plays Kirsten Dunst is her husband in real life. Oh my god, I'm blanking out.
Kid
Friday
Face.
Night Lights.
Oh, Jesse Plemons, who plays her husband in real life.
Yeah.
No, is yeah.
I like that though.
I just like
he's so deep in cover as an actor. He's playing Kirsten Dunst's husband.
That tall baby.
Yeah. Just this kind of road trip movie of these war journalists kind of surviving while also trying to report on what they're witnessing. A lot of kind of, I don't know, I guess the hand wringing over like whether the film had a message or not, or picked a side, or I didn't really experience that while watching it. I just kind of watched the movie as it was, and I felt like even the journalists in the film kind of don't really kind of show sides to anything. I just thought that it was riveting, and honestly, like I even went back and watched it again in the last couple of weeks to see where it would fall on my list, and I just feel like the fact that it's kind of apolitical, or it is apolitical, makes me just kind of identify with the movie even more. I just feel like being able to follow some characters in different phases of this, in their careers in this journalism field and in this chaos that they're in this world, in this film. I just felt like the entire time I felt like just kind of mesmerized. I've always loved Kirsten Dunst, but I think she's doing something really special in this movie, especially kind of carrying Kaylee Spaney along as kind of like a baby bird kind of thing in her shadow. Just some freaking incredible filmmaking. Some of the sequences, again, like I said, are super hard to watch. But I just felt like it was very challenging, and I like that about this movie and in movies in general. But it's one that stuck with me. Came out back in like March or April, and it's kind of stuck with me ever since I finally saw it at that point. And I don't know, it just kind of had an impact on me, and it kind of cemented a spot somewhere in my top 5. But yeah, it's sitting nice. It's sitting nice right there at number 4.
I went from not wanting to see this movie to wanting to see it. I need to watch it. I need
Oh,
to
you
watch
never
it.
saw it?
No, and I keep hearing
Oh
this.
wow.
It's crazy because this is like a disturbing movie, but everybody's like home theater enthusiasts. This is one of the best sounding movies I've ever heard in
Well,
my life.
because like there are sequences like gunfire, and there's some pretty crazy action sequences and suspense sequences, and
Yeah.
the sound design and sound mix and even the cinematography. Like it's just an incredibly well made film. It looks
Wow.
incredible as well. But yes, like in a home theater like you have, if you can't watch it in a movie theater, I mean, yeah, it's the next best thing, and in some ways better probably to experience it where you could. But I definitely recommend checking it out. But yeah, it's my number 4.
Mm.
And back to you, Ronald. Number 3.
You know, um, I've watched The Wizard of Oz for lots of years, but I was wondering, what's the other side of it? How did these people come to be? What's the origin story of this shit? Wicked. We have Wicked to answer that. A
And you're gonna have to hold that for a second.
Uh,
Oh, look at that.
what
Look
just
how that
happened?
that's how
Look
that works.
what
okay.
just
I didn't want you to get too excited.
fucking happened.
I'll
It
tag you in it.
happened.
I'll tag you in
Oh,
a
It
moment.
happened, everybody.
it happened.
Somebody got put on pause. I know I won't get put on pause for my number 3 because you both already mentioned it, I think. Maybe I'm
Mm,
wrong. But my number 3, Rebel Ridge.
Nice.
What a badass movie. What a badass movie.
Hell yeah.
I have thought about watching this movie so many times. I haven't put it on yet. I don't rewatch movies. But most movies I don't even think I'm going to rewatch, you know. This is one I think I could rewatch at almost any given time. Like I
yeah,
think
yeah.
since I saw it the first time, I've been wanting to like force a family viewing of it. It just hasn't happened. But I feel like there's really nobody in my life that I would say let's watch this movie that wouldn't get into it. It's
Yeah.
so solid. It holds together. Um and I think it is a little bit long for what it is in terms of the kind of story that it is, but I think that the added kind of uh third act complications give it a sort of a little bit more of a topic or a thematic concern. There's a little bit more going on than just this one man's mission of revenge in it. Um, it's there's a little bit of like the power structure in the town, and you kind of need to understand like who's really in charge and what they're really doing and everything. But I think what really came out of this was just that now Aaron Pierre is on everybody's radar
Yeah.
as a really good actor that can handle the action and can play a human character who is also like super intimidating in a very I don't know soulful way. Like there's this, he doesn't seem like I think they go out of their way to show that this character is not just killing people left and right,
Yeah.
but he doesn't shy away from hurting them pretty badly.
Right,
And
right.
this is just the kind of old fashioned movie that I think when I was a kid, I loved the idea of like, oh, there's a badass in town. Oh, he's gonna crack heads. Okay, cool. That's kind of the movie, but it's that good, and it has a little bit of extra weight because the supporting cast is good, and Don Johnson is so sleazy and gross, and James Cromwell's good in his bit. It's just full of well executed, solid, patient, nicely depicted action beats. It's just it kind of feels like a next gen version of what it is, because it just I don't know. Did,
And for those keeping score, to note, that's the first film so far on all 3 of our lists.
oh, Rebel Ridge,
There we
yes.
go.
Right. Wow.
I might
Wowza.
have I might have picked that. If I was thinking about a movie that we might
Yeah,
all have on our list, that might have been one. Because I remember when
Yeah.
we saw it, we were all sort of impressed by it.
for sure.
But if you
Cool.
like those, don't you fucked with the wrong guy movies. Like this is like an extremely good entry
Oh, so
in that
good, man.
esteemed genre.
Yeah. And one of the most original ways to unfold how badass somebody is I've ever seen in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Typically it's like a person it was interacted with them before. The way that they unfolded this, I don't want to spoil anything. It's one of the coolest ways I've ever seen somebody's like record of ass kickery being revealed. It just happens in such a cool way.
The record.
Records.
Nah, for sure.
Uh,
Yeah, no, it's a great one.
yeah. Also known as midsize sedan. He'll always be midsize sedan to me because of the movie Old. That was
Old, yeah.
his rapper name.
Yeah, yeah,
Love
yeah.
that name.
That's good
Uh,
stuff.
good stuff.
My number three, I gotta say, looking at my list, some of these movies are like earlier movies in the year. Number three is Luca Guadagnino's Challengers. I saw this film with friend of the show, Lauren, and I felt like this movie was again pretty electric. It's like got this amazing score, Reznor and Ross, amazing performances from Zendaya, Mike Feist, and Josh O'Connor. I don't know, like a love triangle tennis drama. I don't know that I would have pegged that to be in my top five early on in the year when this came out, but I think the performances itself kind of stick with me. And there's a scene with a signal with a tennis racket that I felt like just
Broke my heart.
blew up the theater when I saw the movie, which was again amazing that like an audience picked up on that and had a reaction to it that way. Um but yeah, I don't know. I got nothing but love for this film, and I feel like it has a bit of a rewatchable nature too for me. But yeah, Challengers is my number three.
Good movie. So fun. Like
Yeah,
I don't think I knew what it
entertaining.
was when I
Yeah,
watched it. I think I thought it was going to be more of like a downer or more intense or more of like a erotic thriller or something, but it was more of a almost like a romantic triangle comedy. Not quite comedy, but a
yeah.
dark kind of comedy. It was just fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
entertaining. I think that it's one of the I'm glad that it's on one of our lists. Is it in your was it in your top 10 anywhere, Ronald? I can't remember if it was in your
No, it
top
was
10.
No,
gonna be, but
No, it
nah.
was one that I think in the middle of the year I would have thought it was a shoe in, just because
Yeah.
it's
yeah,
like there aren't that many movies like that that I've seen recently that seem to be
Yeah.
kind of current in that way and kind of playful in that way. And also it was very smart with its marketing and the way that it kind of teased the whole will they, won't they, what is this movie really, what is it about kind of thing. So
you know
also I
what?
think
I want to see her in as many things as possible, and
yeah.
it's just like a win for her in terms of opening a movie. Like she's kind of the star. Like the
Hmm.
director has a following. The two male leads, people probably recognize them, but I mean, it's kind of her movie, really, and she's a producer on the movie. She's incredible in it, and they all are really. But yeah, it was a good feeling to be like, yeah, there's another, that's like a notch in the Zendaya is a star belt. So I'm all for that. But yeah, I love this film.
We all have that belt, right? Like
I'm
yeah.
wearing it currently. It's
Yeah.
weird.
I put a new notch in every time she has a hit.
Ronald,
Mm.
number two.
Okay. I like to consider Movie Schmovie a culture club. And if you really want to hurt me, if you really want to make me cry, you show me a story about prisoners learning how to act. Sing
Ronald,
Sing.
Ronald, Ronald, hold that thought.
Okay. Oh,
Also, anyone who's noticing what's happening will be able to predict something
Oh
because
wow.
oh.
my number two is not the movie that you were talking about. It's not Sing Sing.
Oh snap.
But my number two is a Josh O'Connor film. Ooh, what's our young Josh O'Connor doing when he's overseas,
Mm.
speaking mostly Italian, in a fantastic film called La Chimera? Um, there is a
I don't know if
he's
I've heard of this.
oh, it's good, so good. This is another one of those 23 international, 24
Yeah.
American releases, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Um, but it is, and Chimera basically means like impossible dream. And in this, Josh O'Connor plays a like a disgraced British archaeologist who's known for being able to find where things are, like having a sense of almost a mystical sense of where things are buried or where there's hollow spaces underground where there might be tombs. And I think he's disgraced because he was raiding tombs. And now that's all he does. But he, was once a respected archaeologist, and now he's a tomb raider, and he has a team of grave robbers that he works with in Italy, and they go around finding all these tombs that have like the things people were buried with that are now sometimes very valuable artifacts. And they normally find like ordinary objects, but there's this one case where they find like a pretty big score, and that leads to complications, but it's not just about that. It's also the story of how he's returned to Italy, where a former lover of his, I believe, has disappeared, but he knows the family, and Isabella Rossellini plays the mom, and
Wow.
the other daughters don't like that he's coming around, and like, why is he part of the family? Anyway, it's that kind of movie where there's a little bit of stuff going on at home, there's a little bit of stuff going on with the grave robbing, and there's this woman that is a music student of Isabella Rossellini's character named Italia, who is sort of the spirit of the movie, the kind of beating heart of the film. And he has a little fling with her while he's doing all this other stuff. I don't really want to spoil what the story is, but the movie is just very inventive. It's shot on a combination of 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter, and it just has a
Mm.
very grainy. I realized when I was making notes about this movie that it's a bad sign when anytime a movie has like a spark to it and like texture and like a mood and a vibe, that I'll be like, this is like an old movie. And it does remove, this movie does remind me of films from the 60s, 70s, somewhere in there. Like it feels like you would totally find this to be one of those foreign films, or non-American films that you would watch and go like, oh wow, this is so cool. But it feels like it's from a different era in that sense. Just the way that things are shot. I looked to see who the cinematographer was. Um, it's this woman who's shot all of the director. The director is Alice Rohrwacher. Um, and the cinematographer is Helene Louvart, and they've worked together. It seems that director and that cinematographer typically work together. So maybe her other films, Rohrwacher's other films, are as good or as interesting. But this was just a really cool story, the kind of story where you have no idea really what you're looking at. You don't know what the rhythms of it are going to be, and then when it finally gets to the end, it as a movie like this will do. It's a real stunner and kind of a oh my god kind of ending. So yeah, I recommend La Camera. And also, like, I began to wonder, is Josh O'Connor Italian? And I didn't know it. He's so good at that dialogue. I read he went into like an immersive program where you go in at 9 and you leave at 6 or something, and they
Wow.
only speak to you in Italian, and you're only allowed to speak in Italian.
Oh
So
my
it's like
God.
he did that for whatever he had to do, because his guy, even though he's a British character, the few moments where someone breaks into English in the film, there's just a few, and you do hear his accent then. But the rest of the time, he was so fluid, even though there's a joke in the film about him being a poor Italian speaker. I did not know. I don't know that much about Josh O'Connor, but in this movie, he really it kind of cements the impression I had in Challengers of like, what an unusual presence, that he's both boyish and kind of rugged, and he's kind of beautiful and kind of goofy looking at the same time. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just something about him that feels, again, I'll say it, feels like an old school kind of movie star. There's some magnetism. There's something raw and potent about that guy. And yeah, this movie is full of supporting cast that just feels like, oh, these must be real people. This isn't acting.
Yeah.
Really cool movie.
Very
Cool.
cool. My number, what is this? Number two. We're on
Mm.
number two.
Yeah,
Is Wicked. Ronald, you can talk with
the
with me
boys can
about
talk
Wicked.
about Oz.
So good.
Yeah, you were on a roll there. I didn't want to cut you off too abruptly, but I didn't want you to get too
Oh,
excited.
I cried.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
cried. I
yeah.
cried like a baby. Like I think there's something
A
about
couple times.
yeah, I think so I've been doing like some research on Wicked, and it's like Dina Menzel playing the lead, and it's ties to like uh Jewish persecution and women being accused of being witches and things like that. Um, and the context changes when a black woman becomes Alphaba. I mean, it really does.
Mhm.
And it but the cool part about this is it's so layered. Like people can look at this movie and be seen and in this film, and it's proof that if somebody's if a black lead is in a movie, that you can still feel like you see yourself in a film. You can still feel like you're attached to these characters, because so many people I knew that saw it related to this feeling of like feeling like an outsider, feeling like, you know, like you don't quite fit in.
Yeah.
Like And even when you're comfortable in that space, people still make you feel like an asshole about it. Uh, and you know, I think that this movie has a lot of weight to it, but it's so light and easy to go through and fun, and you know, you could watch it a couple times, you'll cry a couple times. It just is fun. Everything, those two voices together. I mean, like, come on,
Yeah.
Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo. Who would have thought that these two voices would be on the same screen singing, and super charismatic
Sure.
Ariana Grande performance, super understated Cynthia Erivo performance. I just think that there's something about this that feels absolutely perfect. It feels like something we're going to watch forever. You know what I mean? Like, I could see a couple things. I could see where Frozen came from, one thing, but then I could also see how this could also be one of those movies that, like, my daughter will say, you know, I want to see Wicked. I want to see Wicked. I want, you know, and we'll watch it a couple times and I'll cry.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, every year I kind of have that emotional movie on my list, like, or something having to do with taking my daughter to a movie.
Yeah.
And you talking about yours one day, maybe having that reaction, like this is the one for me this year. Like I was excited to see Wicket. I was like, there's no way it's going to deliver the way that I think it could.
Mm.
I saw the Broadway version of it with my wife, and loved it. The music's great, whatever. But being able to take my daughter who's 7 to see it, and again, I talked about it on the podcast a few weeks ago. Just her reaction to it. Again, it just does something to me, and it only enhances how well the movie plays and how well it's doing with audiences. And just I just think that they did an incredible job making this movie. The direction, the production design, the costumes, everything is just so magical. I don't know. It
Yeah.
just really is pretty special, I think. And yeah, the casting is great, the songs are great, they sound good. um but yeah, I don't know, my daughter just and my wife as well, in the theater, just seeing them kind of light up watching it just did something special and elevated it for me. And like I took them back, and or to take them back to see the sing along. They put a sing along version out in theaters a week ago,
Mm.
to see it again, and like to see my daughter singing songs in a theater, which she's not the she's a bit of a shy child at times, but like to
uh,
see that was pretty special.
oh
And
man.
I mean, that's everything in our household right now is Alphaba. And the soundtrack and the costumes and everything she draws has to do with Wicked. And it's just really cool. And I know that that's not a review of the movie. It just enhances my experience with it.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure.
the movie itself, my experience watching it was very similar to yours. An audience, a real true musical blockbuster, where songs are being sung along in a theater. A movie that's kind of like a two-parter that is its own movie and ends, and you can look forward to the next part next winter when it comes out. But it's not one of those things where I felt like it wasn't its own film. It does kind of start, have an ending, and all that good stuff. And just to reiterate what I said when we reviewed it in general, like I really do think the last like 15-20 minutes of the movie is some of the most exciting movie theater experience I've had in the last couple of years. When Defying Gravity comes on and it all escalates, and the dialogue in between the song, I mean, the way that that's cut and edited, and the way the movie ends, like literally the last 3 seconds of it, I just think is super powerful, and just was amazing to see in a theater. So yeah, Wicked is my number 2.
Cool.
Ronald, your number 1 movie of the year.
Ooh. Dune. Dune 2. Dune 2 was sorry. Dune 2 is my number one movie. I thought that this movie would fall off.
Okay.
I thought that it would fall off. But like a well-fastened toupee. It just
With
sits at the
just the
top.
right amount of spice.
It sat right at the top of my head.
A well-seasoned toupee.
Just
Um, yeah, why don't I just jump ahead of John for a hot second, because it's my number 1 as well. So
yes.
let's just do this right now. Let's just do this. I'll do this with you, and then you and John can close out with his. But I mean, yeah, this is a no-brainer for me. I mean, yeah, there was a moment, there was a couple moments where I was like, can it hold on? And again, the way we started the show, there's some movies I haven't seen, but I don't know that anything is going to replace this one for me. And I said it, I teased it at the top of the episode. You know, I got to watch Dune with you guys in your basement before we went to see this. You unfortunately got sick before we went and saw part two in theaters, as it would happen, you know. But being able to see it with John, and at a press screening and really pretty amazing presentation, um, was a one of those theatrical experiences. Like I've threaded this through our episodes recently. My Thanksgiving list, the premium large format screens, like going back and seeing it again on Dolby after that, like just being able to see a movie like this that really is, not to be cliche, like made for the big screen, was just a joy, honestly. And mentioning Zendaya earlier, there she is again. She's got two of my three spots at the top. I love her. Timothy Chalamet is great in it. Austin Butler's great. I mean, honestly, we've talked about it so much on this podcast. And it really bums me out that it's not getting the attention that I thought it would get. And I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit when they've announced that like another movie's coming out. So it's going to get like the Lord of the Rings treatment or some crap, like where it doesn't get acknowledged maybe until that movie comes out. And if it's great, who knows if it will be as good as this one. But yeah, man, Dune Part 2 was something special for me this year, man, and it held on strong.
Oh, um, yeah, I think everything about it just escalated the first story, like just seeing Atreides just become this person, this deity to people, and it was funny. Like it had some funny parts to it. It had some serious parts, like the mood changing when they went to the other planet. It just like these things just
Yeah.
really felt a little more dynamic. Whereas I have so many friends that saw the first Dune and were bored to tears, and mostly because it was a lot of dialogue building, dialogue and things like that. I have to say something, and it feels like hyperbolic, but I have to say it just because I think when I was young, my exposure to Star Wars was at a weird time. Like I really did enjoy Star Wars, but I didn't get to enjoy it until I got a little older.
Right.
This is my Star Wars. Right now, this Dune is my Star Wars now. Like it is my adult Star Wars. I didn't really get to have Star Wars as a kid the way that I maybe should have. But
Mm.
this is hitting me in a space. I mean, it's different. It's not as quite as light in that way, but just the big scenery, the riding animals and freaking laser beams. It's like it's craziness and the way that Denis is able to make this stuff look so tangible is bothersome. Like I've watched this movie on a bigger screen as you could watch it, a smaller screen as you could watch it on my computer screen, and then I watch it on my TV, and I'm like, how the fuck does he make this stuff look so like real? I
Mhm.
don't I don't know what he keeps it a secret, but that seems to be like the key to everything he does. Even from what's the one that was about the missing person, uh
Prisoners.
prisoners. Just everything feels so real, so grounded. And the fact that he can do that in a sci-fi world too is just an account of his master. He just is a master
Yes.
craftsman. He just is good at creating tension in these characters. Sometimes you'll see somebody, you're like, why is Austin Butler in this fucking movie? Why is he? And then you see him on screen, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
he's a psycho in this movie. It's perfect casting. It's just this, it happens so much. Like he really knows his shit. And to add to that, the soundtrack, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful music
Yeah.
that feels like I'm like almost in church. Like it feels like spiritual, like this like vibrations that he creates, and he knows that he's doing it. Like he very aware of this sort of thing that he's creating, and it is a commentary
You know
on
he
like
knows it. You know he's just
you
sitting
know he
there.
knows it,
He knows what he's doing.
and there is that, sort of this like underlying thing about like foreign policy and taking things from people that don't deserve things taken from them, and
Mhm.
taking land and things like that. It feels so good to have somebody put something out that feels like uncompromised. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's like, I have to put this out the way I have to put this out. It has to look the way it looks. It has to sound the way it sounds. It has to feel the way it feels. And something about that feels nuts. Feels like a privilege.
Yeah, he doesn't. Denis is. He doesn't. I don't know that he's missed. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't. I don't. Yeah, he's just a special. He's a special filmmaker.
Yeah.
I highly recommend. The DGA has Directors Guild has a podcast and a YouTube series where for that for Doom Part Two, Steven Spielberg interviewed him,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's a really great interview.
I
Just
have to
hearing
bookmark
Steven
that.
Spielberg talk, hearing like two of my favorite directors talk about my favorite movie of the year was really exciting. And to kind of go like the craft of it, even like asking him how he did stuff. It's like you hear Steven Spielberg asking you that, and you're like, okay, you've probably done something
Mhm.
right, and it's just like a special thing. But um, yeah, I don't know. There's not really much else to say. I mean, Dune Part Two was incredible, and from the opening sequence to the very last, I just thought it was magical. And John can attest to my excitement in the theater watching it, especially during the sandworm sequence. So
Yeah, Steve
Mm.
gets there's a stance that Steve adopts. There's a kind of like leaning forward. He's very
Yeah.
into the film. Like it's a treasured thing. Like because it means you're
I
seeing
appreciate it,
something
man.
special
Yeah,
probably on screen. Steve doesn't
yeah,
do that at every movie,
yeah.
So if you get to see a Steve stance,
Right, right, right.
that's a special thing.
Yeah.
But also if I had been asked to name, if you had just said, John, at one point I leaned forward, what scene was it? I would
Yeah.
have known. I would
Yeah,
have known.
absolutely.
But I think what makes those movies powerful. Even though I didn't have it on my top 10, it was number 13 for me. I was shocked that a movie as big and satisfying as Dune Part Two was number 13. That's just the
Yeah,
kind of
wow.
that was the kind of year it was for me. But also when I started prioritizing that really personal sort of
Yeah.
feeling about the movies, I felt like as awe-inspiring as I found Dune as a kind of visual statement, and I agree totally about Denis' crafting of this world and how smart they're being about it. I don't know that they quite know what to do about expanding it beyond just movies he makes, but
Mm,
we'll see what happens. They've announced a Dune 4
yeah, I
already,
saw that.
which is like he's not signed on for, or he's not necessarily agreed to do more than just the first three. So we'll see. We'll see what happens if they know how to build out Dune. But if we just get a great trilogy from Denny, and it's his, in interviews he was kind of like, I'll probably never get to make a Star Wars movie. I could never work with that kind of control and that much
Right.
baggage. So I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
Do it.
He's one of our guys for sure on this
Absolutely.
podcast. I was
Yeah.
thinking about who's had a year, like arguably, um, Denny had a year and away because of it's the movie schmovie thing. We always give him a little love on this show, even though it
Yeah.
wasn't on my top 10 list.
Yeah.
Definitely Zendaya has had a year.
Oh yeah.
Nicholas Holt having a year.
The
Definitely
boy
having a
don't
year.
miss.
Josh O'Connor in a stealthy kind of way here. He's
Yeah.
only in two, having a year, even though in
He
movies
was
that didn't make the list but could have. Sebastian Stan is having a fucking year,
Yeah.
and he's
O'Connor was also in that Apple TV series, the World War One or World War Two series,
oh, what was that called?
Masters of the Air.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was like
Okay.
one of the leads in that too.
I think Aaron Pierre's having a year too. And I have to say this. I don't know
Look,
what
yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't
Go
know
ahead, sorry.
why people are not talking about this fucking show.
The one that
Do you
he's been announced to be on, or is there something new that's actually out?
No. He did Genius.
Yeah.
Oh,
And where
okay.
he played Malcolm X.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he plays aside the guy that plays that's in Mufasa with him. That guy plays Martin Luther King. I forget
Yeah.
the actor's name. He is incredible in that. And I think that people are saying like, oh, it's Rebel Ridge is what. Look, do yourself a favor, watch this series, and you'll see why he's getting chosen for everything. It's a part of it. I think Rebel Ridge is a thing, but
Well, yeah,
Genius.
it's the Netflix factor,
It's
though.
yeah, it's that depth. Like if you see the emotional stuff that he's doing in this Genius show, woo, woo. But then
Well,
Green Lantern.
I know, and it's like it's this new take with um why am I spacing on his name?
Kyle Chandler.
Kyle Chandler. Great choice for what they're
Yeah,
doing with
that
that
I
series.
cannot.
Just a hint. We don't know what they're really
Cannot
doing yet.
wait.
But it's a little weird that it's a grounded murder investigation show with Green Lantern characters, but I trust that there's a take.
Yeah,
At
yeah,
this
yeah, for
point,
sure.
until proven differently, I believe in the James Gunn. If there's any Snyder cultists out there listening, they're mad at me now. But I
They put
believe
out a knife on you. They just
I just believe in the potential of a James Gunn DCU until further notice. At this
yeah,
point, I don't think the guy has phoned it in. I love their philosophy of actual projects with actual scripts
Yeah.
and moving forward with whatever seems like it's the most ready to go. I think that maybe it's frustrating some people because some projects get kicked back and there's a lot of
mm,
dates that get changed. And sometimes, like Matt Reeves' Batman movie has now been bumped back again, but there's supposedly stuff behind the scenes that's very personal stuff that maybe nobody's business as to why that's happening. So I don't know. I
mm,
respect what James Gunn
yeah,
is trying to set up over there, and I
Sure.
do think they're trying to make good individual projects.
yeah,
Um, and so yeah, I'm on board for the Aaron Pierce ascendancy. But another actor who we could have at any given moment probably pointed out and said, this guy's having a year. Since we might as well talk about it. I ruined the surprise. There's no way
Yeah.
for me to do it without ruining the
yeah,
surprise.
Take us
But
in.
my number one film of the year, yeah, I'm a big guy to get that emotional reaction to something, and if it carries me through,
yeah,
and I told Nikki when I was watching this movie, I said, these movies I'm watching in this last few days before we do our list, they're all innocent until proven guilty. Meaning, like, if I'm watching them, I'm thinking they might be on my list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then until they hit a moment where they suck or something, I'm like, this movie could be on my list. So I've seen a lot of good movies in the last week or so. But this one, oh man, I almost had no interest in it, Ronald. Like I put it on going like,
yeah,
okay, prison drama. It's
yeah.
about theater and it's about all this stuff. And I love Coleman Domingo, but like, is it an actor doing a love letter to acting? And it's like, sometimes that can be wonderful, but also a little up its own ass or something. I just was not really looking forward to it, but had heard that it was good. And within minutes, you ever do that? And within minutes, you're like, oh, I see what
Yeah.
this movie is. I see how this is a movie that people love. And then within a few more minutes, I was hooked. I was
Yeah.
past all my misgivings about like I don't like really like we've talked about this, Ronald, like prison movies and slavery movies and
Yeah.
civil
Yeah.
rights
Yeah.
movies.
This
It's always a bummer when so many black stories are tied up in trauma and
100%.
suffering and misery. But this is not that. This is not
Yeah.
that. Even though it is a prison movie through and through, and it hits a
Yeah.
lot of the beats of a prison movie. The people are trying to get parole. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some people die, some people live. But it's not that. It's not the
Yeah.
prison movie you're expecting. This was such a beautiful, I guess I'll throw it to you and then we can go back and forth a little bit, but a beautiful, heartfelt movie
Yeah.
that continually surprised me with the humanity of its characters and the space that was being created for the incarcerated population of America are some of the most misunderstood,
For sure.
maligned, poorly depicted people, and this movie was so sweet and sensitive that it almost felt like there was a halfway point where I turned to Nikki and I said, I'm really worried that bad things are going to happen in this movie. And it's like, it's strange to say that about a prison drama because, of course, bad things are happening. But this is not that movie. This is a movie where the bad things that happen feel more human. And there's more of a connection, I feel, with these characters than I normally do in this type of story. So I have a few more things I'd love to say, but I want to hear why you had it at number two. Obviously, you almost liked it as much as I did.
Okay. There's a device that they use in Nightmare on Elm Street where you fall asleep, and you wake up, and you're in a nightmare. However, I fell asleep, I woke up, and I'm in a fucking Domingo Sans. This man is shooting left and right,
I love
fucking.
him.
Pow, pow. He's making hits after. Look, and when I have to say this, man. What they did with the cast makes me want to tear up.
And you don't know it until the end, do you? I didn't. When it said
The,
these guys were all playing themselves?
yes, that. But then you know what they did with the salaries?
No. You're gonna make me cry again.
Oh, so they split the salaries equal. And then
Mm,
anybody that contributed, so like they have equal pay, and then anybody that contributes more, so like anybody that goes on the media run or does more interviews, they get paid a little more. It's based on your work, but everybody gets the same base salary.
that's great.
I was like, what? Coleman, come on, man. Like, eh, this is a well acted, like,
It's immaculately acted, Ronald.
yeah. It's
It's so
everybody
real.
is so dynamic, so funny,
Hmm.
so serious. I mean, like the guy that, yeah, it just
Are you gonna? Well, are you coming up? Mike,
right, like,
his buddy. Is
yeah,
that who you were going to say? The guy? Because I
yeah,
think you were about to say the guy that, and you didn't want to say
yes,
what
yes,
happens in the
yes,
movie. No, I
yeah,
mean heartbreaker of a character because of the when he's talking about going his family coming from the islands and how he'll
yeah,
never go there. He knows he'll never go there. Come on.
yeah,
But you were mentioning Nightmare on Elm Street, falling asleep. I love the part that Freddy played in this. Do you remember the
yes,
play that they're putting on? The play
yeah,
that they're putting on, Steve, is a bunch of people wanted to do different things. And so one guy was like, I can write it up. We'll do like a time travel thing so we can have
yeah.
Egyptians and cowboys and Shakespeare. And one guy says Freddy Krueger. And they're like, and Freddy Krueger. And so like later when they're giving out the roles, one guy clearly is auditioning for the part of Freddy. Freddy and
Yes.
then there's a scene later where there's this like it's just you're seeing clips from the play and there's a silhouetted guy with a big hat and a knife hand
Yes,
behind the curtain and
yes,
someone even says for some
Amazing.
reason Freddy's in here and we got that in there but no it was so fun but like what I love about that Ronald they say it in the movie that acting is not about acting in putting on a show it's about being vulnerable around each other
yeah,
and to take these men who you might imagine these guys would the last thing they'd want to do would be vulnerable around each other.
yeah,
But not just that it was the actors and it's the characters. I'm watching them the way they're comfortable with each other, the way they go into play together. I in the last year or so have started doing a little D&D with a particular group of friends of mine that I love hanging out with and they asked me would you want to do a campaign with us and I was like I've never done this but I'm going to do it and
Mhm.
it's like it's play it's
Yeah,
play pretend and if you're with the right people and you trust when you play pretend it is fantastic and it is like I've done acting I've done different things this movie made me think of those moments when you form a little community around a project or when you realize that that's a tie that you have with people but in
right.
this environment it's especially poignant that these guys are getting some meaning and an escape from knowing how many more years they've got or maybe they will never see the light of day um and they even say it like men being vulnerable with each other. We've talked about it on this show. This podcast is for us a non-toxic male hangout, It's
Yeah,
important. And especially in prison or in whatever institution these guys are in. Um, it's I don't know. It's like it hit me on so many different levels, and it was so much more relatable in all the ways I just mentioned than I thought it would be because it really does. Like you really see, oh, maybe before this guy's life went off track and he did something that changed his life, or got accused of something that changed his life. Maybe he was already on track. Maybe he was a theater kid in high school. You don't know what
yeah,
the person's
yeah,
story is, or maybe they found that after the fact when it's in this
Right.
environment. But it's still
yeah,
very beautiful. And to find at the end that not only is this based on something very real, but a lot of the names are the same, and a lot of the people are playing themselves. To
yeah,
me, honestly, Ronald, that was the little it's dusty in here moment that I wasn't even expecting. Was oh my
yeah,
God, the fact that these are real guys and that
yeah,
their performances are so subtle and sensitive. Um, no, just a really impressive movie.
yeah. It's nonstop good. Like I was
Yeah.
blown away. Like I kind of had a similar feeling. It's like, oh, not another trauma movie. And that full disclosure, I had a lot of family and friends that were prisoners, and I spent a large chunk of my time as a kid going to jail. I remember getting patted down as a little kid and checked for contraband, and you go to this place, and people are just humans.
Hmm.
You forget because you hear so many people talk about, prison isn't hard enough. There should be But the prison, I guarantee you, is much harder than you could ever imagine. And going to visit family there and friends there is just incredibly paralyzing. I mean, it's like you're kind of in this stasis. Prison life is totally different than the realities of outside. And even though they have exposure to it, it's like two different timelines. It's like a snap. And then when you get out, you have to kind of reconcile that you've lost 10 years of your life and you're trying to make up for it in this astronomically short amount of time.
Mm.
And seeing people do it is how you reoffend. Like they get so overwhelmed with it. They get out, they're like, oh, this is stupid. Why am I trying to catch up? I'm gonna reoffend to go back to jail because it's easier that way. And the people that are trying to do things, I commend. Even if it's like getting a degree in prison, trying to act, trying to. When I was a kid, my uncle made me a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle necklace, and I was like, "How the hell did he make this in jail?" But he did. He was like at a crafts class. You know what I mean? Like you forget that stuff is like a thing. Now he's out. He's reformed. He has a church. It's insane, man. Like the prison system is not as it's broken. It's broken as shit, but there are some good stories. And I happen to be on the side of, you know, reform is a real thing. And you can find some grace in that. And this movie really highlights how human just people are.
Yeah.
It's like
Hmm.
so
And you know who else is great in this? Subtle performance, but just gains power as the movie goes along. The little guy who like runs the theater group, the guy who writes the play, Brent, I think is his name. He's
yes,
so good.
he
And like
is.
as it goes along and you see how involved he is in with the guys and how
Yeah,
much again it's the brotherhood or whatever you'd want to call it that like there's so much he's so proud of them for
yeah,
sticking with it, but also there's a kind of dad like quality to him when
yeah,
one of the guys kind of is not abiding by the rules of the group. He leaves it up to the group, it seems like
yeah, yeah.
whether someone's welcome back or whatever. But I thought that guy, I think the actor's name is Paul Raci or Paul Raci, just really, really good. And yeah, when the guy who plays Divine Eye, who's one of
Flying
the
eye.
people playing himself, I mean, like there's not that many people that can steal a scene from Coleman Domingo, but he has a couple of moments where he does, and it's just the power of that character. You think you know what you're looking at when you first are introduced to that guy, and you
Yeah,
realize at the end of the movie, you go, "Oh no, I had no idea."
yeah.
Um, Not just that in the movie, but the real guy behind the story. You realize what he's doing in the movie is something that he really did. No, I think this is that kind of movie, and it's funny that you call yourself a basic bitch for having this in your top five. But I did sort of think, oh my gosh, don't tell me this is going to be this movie that, is going to hit me in the feels. But I don't think it's a sappy movie. I think it's
No,
just emotions are high and you can't talk about these subjects without it being like, it's not corny to
yeah,
take these subjects seriously. But the
no,
fact that this is all about joy. I mean, there were so many points in this movie where I was just like, this is celebrating joy and celebrating like what people can do for each other and
Mhm.
together. Really, really neat movie.
Can't wait to see it. And I literally almost watched it 2 days ago and just ran out of time. But I'm happy to see him. I love him.
Yeah.
And, to see him in the real conversation for awards stuff is really great to see and encouraging that it's kind of stuck around. And I think that A24 is putting it back in theaters
oh, cool.
this month as an effort. I think because they pretty much botched the release of the movie earlier this year and the marketing around it. So I think now that they got some love for him in the movie, I think they're going to try to leverage that. And yeah, I just read an article today that it'll be back in theaters this month.
Yeah,
Cool.
people should definitely check out the conversation between him and Kieran Culkin that they did, the kind of
Oh
actors
yeah, that
So
was great.
good.
podcast thing. So good. Two guys with such different energy and philosophies, but who clearly enjoy each other a lot. It's just great to
Yes.
see. It really made me want to see them in a mismatched buddy comedy
Yeah.
ASAP.
Did you see that Timothy Chalamet and Coleman Domingo lived in the same building?
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
small
It's like this
world.
weird, yeah. Wow. Wow, 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 wow stuff.
So that's it.
That's it.
That's the list. Looking over our choices, we're gonna run off the movie schmovie top 5. There's a tie. Couldn't be a top 5 without a tie somewhere.
Yeah.
At number 5, we have a tie between Anora and The Order. Number 4 is Rebel Ridge. So, let me back up for a second. Anora and The Order are tied with 10 points total.
Okay.
It was on, they basically in an inverse order, they collect points from 10 to 1 versus, where they place on our list. So they both got 10 points. Rebel Ridge, the only film on all 3 of our lists, is in number 4 spot with 14 points.
Nice.
Number 3 spot with 17 points is Wicket. And the second slot is Sing Sing with 19 points. And the top film of the year for Movie Schmovie is Dune Part 2 with 20 points. But that's a pretty good list. I think it's pretty representative of this podcast.
It's pretty cool. It's all
kind
over
of all over the place. So I love that about it.
I like it.
And I think 1, 2, 3, all of those are available to watch at home if you want to right now.
Okay, yeah.
Right. I think they're all on video on demand. And some in theater still, but I'm saying if you can't make it out, all those movies you could check them out.
Hell yeah.
If you like. So, was there anything else you guys wanted to mention? Any ones that just missed the list that maybe that weren't somewhere on one of our top 10s? In your 10 through 20, or an honorable mention that we didn't talk about already.
I'll just rattle off my 11 through 20 just because there's some good movies in there and there's some that got talked about, but I'll just rattle them off real quick. 11, Strange Darling. 12, The Apprentice. 13, Dune Part 2. 14, Juror Number 2. 15, A Different Man. 16, Cuckoo. 17, Challengers. 18, I Saw the TV Glow. 19, Saturday Night. And 20, Heretic.
Cool.
The reason I mention that is because I do think those both of the Sebastian Stan movies that were in there, the Apprentice and A Different Man, are both very worthy of watching and discussing.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Steve. Maybe it was you that had already seen Juror Number 2.
Yeah.
There's something satisfying about that movie, and I will say sometimes a movie earns a lot of respect from me by knowing what to do with an ending. That last moment is so fucking good.
So good.
It's Agreed. The story's not over, but you know what you need to know. It's a great kind of ending. So, Ronald, anything you want to say?
What do you got, Ronald?
I just have 11 through 15.
All right,
that's it.
Go for it.
11, Blink Twice. Did anybody see Blink Twice?
I wanted to.
I did. I liked it.
God, man, that movie is great. 12, Challengers. 13, Abigail, which would have been my 10. It was almost my 10. I really like that movie. I watched it a ton of times. 14, Challengers. 15, Hundreds of Beavers.
Yes.
Hundreds of Beavers really made out of all the movies we've talked about, I think that made the biggest impression on me. It was so crazy. It doesn't make any sense that somebody would want to put this out, but it works so well, man. Hundreds of Beavers.
I wanted it in my top 10 so bad, Ronald, because it's so unique and so specific, but I just kept slotting it a little bit further down. But it's no. It didn't make my top 20 even, but it's definitely one that I there's nothing else like it, so that earns a lot of interest for me. So Steve, anything you want to?
I think most of the ones I have in my 10 through 20 or 11 through 20 we talked about already. There was I got a couple that I would just like to mention. I don't think we talked about them at all on this podcast. Maybe one of them. But I really love this comedy called Babes. I watched with Aaron with Alana Glazer about just getting a woman who gets pregnant after a one night stand, and kind of her best friend who is a mother of 2 already, and they're kind of just going through the pregnancy together and being parents and living in New York City. I thought it was really funny and just a sweet movie. I had that in my honorable mentions. Another comedy, again, having to do with pregnancy and that part of womanhood. It's called Scrambled, directed by Leah McKendrick, who also is the star of the movie. It was also the movie that casually really kind of promoted the I don't know if you got Chapel Roan, her Pink Pony Club song. That's a huge hit in the world right now. it was prominently featured in this film. This is a comedy that I saw video on demand earlier in the year. That I thought was great. Aaron loved it as well. Again, one of these things we can casually watch at home that really kind of just surprised me how funny it was. And I think she's got a lot going on. I'm sure we're gonna probably hear her name in the next couple of years. She was really great, and her name's Leah McKendrick, and that's called Scrambled. And the last one I'll mention is Jim Cummings. We're a fan of his on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He had a movie come out this year called The Last Stop in Yuma County that he stars in. He did not direct this film. It's directed by Francis Galuppi, but it's just one of those movies where, you know, a crime happens and there's a truck stop in the middle of Yuma County, and all these characters kind of cross paths with one another, and you know, just kind of chaos ensues. Who's going to survive? Who's going to break? Who's going to do something that they probably shouldn't have done? But just kind of like a mean, kind of dark crime thriller that I thought was really good. That was a video on demand release as well. All those movies I just mentioned are on demand or available to stream. But everything else I had was, I think you guys had mentioned in your top tens. But yeah, man, that was it. That's the only ones I wanted to just give some love to. Maybe lesser known ones if anybody wants to seek those out.
Cool.
That's it. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about movies that were from last year in the coming months because of the award season. Again, Golden Globes this week. If you've watched that kind of thing, Oscars in a little over a month and a half. We'll talk about these and see if any of these are discussed in those award shows. Hopefully, maybe win some awards. Because I think last time I checked, like they kind of follow us, like especially when we go this early. I'm sure we'll have much more of an impact.
Oh, absolutely.
On the voting bodies.
You talk about the foreign press?
Foreign press, Academy, and anything really that.
I mean, I think that we're going to find them probably lifting verbatim things we've said and using them and pretending like and they'll probably not even change it. It'll be like, Ron, you know, what about this? And
we say, how do you say Schmovie? How do you say? Well, how do you say?
You're like that. That's how you say it. You're saying it.
You're saying it.
You're saying it. You're
well,
doing
if you notice, like French film critics, right? They always go bye at the end of a conversation. And I'm like,
Stolen.
It caught on, guys.
They stole it.
They stole it.
That was fun. It was a great conversation. A lot of great movies on these lists. Hopefully, if you haven't seen some of them, and especially the ones that we, in that final top 5 again, it's pretty sweet that they're all available for streaming. And if I go even deeper into a tie for the number 6 spot on the pod, you have the Substance and Wild Robot, which are also available at home. So these are some amazing movies that we talked about. So please, if you haven't seen them, check them out. Let us know what you think of it. Anybody that participated in this live stream, thank you so much. Pierre, obviously, thank you so much for joining it right on time and being there. We appreciate you for doing that.
He's an A student, that Pierre.
He did well. He did well. But yeah, that was fun. And we'll be back probably in a week or so with the next episode, the first normal episode of the new year, the usuals. Movieschmovie.com is the website if you want to go back and subscribe to the podcast and whatever platform you prefer to listen to your podcast, or if you want to do the visual, the look at it element of the podcast, youtube.com/movieschmovie podcast. You can subscribe there, hit the notify bell to get alerts when the new episodes come out in video format. And also we have the shorts on there, so if you want to kind of just browse and see topics that we talk about, you don't have the time to check out the whole podcast, anything would be great and appreciate it. And we thank you in advance for doing that. Did either of you have anything else you wanted to throw down before we wrap this up?
Maybe mention again what your required viewing pick was.
Oh God, what was it? Remind me, John. Oh, Asphalt City.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I should have tied that back to the order. Ty Sheridan was in the order.
Ooh.
That's what made me pick Asphalt City. I had just seen the order when it was my turn to pick.
If you follow
If
you follow your ass, it's your fault. City.
In the city, yeah.
That's why they call it that.
That's what it is.
I hate to do this on mic, but I guess we're live, so it's like next time, do you guys want to talk about a few things that we're looking forward to in 2025? We haven't done like a preview of that in a while.
I kind of love that.
That sounds like an episode, John.
So we could do required viewing and then just talk about what we're looking forward to.
There we go. We'll each pick 3 movies, and you can tune in next week to see what our 3 top anticipated films of 2025 are. Great.
I just like the list feeling, Steve. I
Yeah,
got
me
this
too.
round
Let's
robin
stick with
thing
it.
going.
Let's stick with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So you can have that to look forward to next week.
Movie Schmovie list, Schindler's. I like all the lists.
Checks out. Okay, let's leave on that note before we get banned from YouTube live streaming. As always, thank you so much for listening. You've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Okay. All right. Cool. It has ended. That was cool, man.